In Grand Theft Auto Vice City, at one point in the story, Tommy gets invited by his English pal Kent Paul over to a recording studio to meet the members of a fictional Scottish hair metal band, Love Fist. The recording studio in question is located at the V-Rock building, which is obviously going to be the same building that houses the studios of the in-game radio station of the same name. The fact that V-Rock has a building is probably something that all of us glossed over and didn't pay any attention to when we first played the game. Like, yeah, V-Rock has a building, so what? And this is exactly how I was as well. But I wouldn't be talking about this if I didn't have a point to make, would I? The reason I started to care about this is because according to the in-game texture files under radar icons, each radio station has its own map icon for some reason. These textures were provided by a viewer, Ash735, so special thanks goes to Ash for sharing this with us. Now, if it had just been the V-Rock icon on its own, then I could see that being explained as just an early version of the Love Fist mission strings icon before they changed to a skull by the time the game was released. But the fact that every single radio station in the game has its own map icon is puzzling to say the least. There aren't any coordinates left over for where the icons were supposed to appear on the map, so unlike V-Rock, stations like Flash FM, Emotion 98.3, or Wave 103 don't have any dedicated buildings. This tells me that it was either an idea that they had very early on in development before deciding not to move ahead with it, or maybe it was like the Gator Keys, something they came up with later in development and then realized shortly afterward that they just wouldn't have enough time to finish it before the game had to be released. To me, it almost feels like they only got as far as designing the icons and designating a building for V-Rock and one other station before scrapping the idea. It'd be easy enough to mark a building for V-Rock since Love Fist, despite being a fictional band, has music that fits along well with the real licensed music that V-Rock plays. And notice how Kent Paul only calls it a recording studio, not a radio station.
Tommy, son, have I got a surprise for you? I'm down at the recording studios with some major artists. Why don't you pay us a visit? You know it makes sense, don't ya? See you later.
It's possible that maybe this building initially had no signage tying it to V-Rock whatsoever. It could have just been a random building that they then decided to turn into the V-Rock building only because it made sense for it to be. As for where the other radio stations would have gone, who knows? I could see them mostly being downtown or maybe in Vice Beach, but we really don't know. However, one thing I noticed in the game is how several buildings downtown have these satellite dishes on top of them. The V-Rock building has them, and so does the VCN building, so it's already established that the in-universe media outlets all have them. But what about these other unmarked buildings? There's only a couple buildings that each have these satellite dishes, as well as a mansion on Starfish Island. I get that the one on Starfish Island is probably just there to imply that a rich person was getting satellite TV, but what about the buildings downtown? Could these have been the locations of the other radio stations at some point in development? Of course, this is all just speculation on my part, and I could be wrong. All we have left are these icons, which prove that the radio stations were meant to have physical locations for one reason or another. Would there have been additional missions for each station like how V-Rock had? Probably not, but maybe they were going to be purchasable properties in the game, or maybe there was some other purpose to them that we're simply never going to know about unless someone who worked on the game can shed some light on this. Also, it's pretty funny how Wild Style has a radar icon, meaning that they would have had a dedicated building too, even though in the game they're referred to as being a pirate radio station with an unknown location. The late Mr. Magic voices himself as the host of the station, and he frequently mentions how the police can't find their location, yet they would have had a handy radar icon for players showing exactly where they would have been located. Well, I guess that's a bit of rockstar logic in the early days for you. By the way, there's also one more radio station in these icons that actually does have a building. However, it doesn't actually exist in the game along with the other stations that we can listen to. 810 VCN, which I'm going to discuss further in my next video. Until then, this is Badger, and I hope you have a good day out there.